maybe, possibly, maybe, possibly, maybe, possibly, maybe.
Welcome everyone to the fourth episode of the TheWhatCast, where today's theme will be free speech. Just before we get started, we have a few announcements, such as our Twitch, TheWhatCast TTV, where we'll be streaming at the same time as YouTube, and we also have an Instagram where we'll be posting highlights and much more, TheWhatCast IG. We also have a Twitter, TheWhatCast TW. I suggest you check these out so you can keep informed and see some of our bonus content. Some of our other announcements are that we are working on a studio set to record and stream episodes, but this will not happen until COVID restrictions are eased and we'll be allowed to do so. Music for this video is provided by Darach Sharkey. His links are in the description if you want to check him out, and this episode is sponsored by kingwin.net. More on that later. Now, the definition of free speech according to the Oxford Dictionary is the right to express any opinions without censorship or restraint. Free speech does not only apply to speaking, but can also take forms in literature, arts, and symbolism. And it's like symbolism generally being like, you could say like flags, for example. Yeah. So like that's the dictionary, I suppose, definition of it, but like I suppose from person to person it's different. But as for today, we have Frank and Liam here. Do you want to say hello? What's not connecting?
Can't. Yeah, like I can on Discord. I can.
The online, I suppose, definition. But want to start? What's the order today? So Frank, Giovanni, Liam. Frank, what would your?
Isn't it freedom of expression? Being able to say, of course, as we'll get on to talk about, in points where you're start to infringe on other people's rights and things like that.
Yeah. I suppose obviously I'm the same. It's like without the threat of being censored or put down by like a government force, stuff like that. But like then again, there's kind of like that line, like where do we draw the line? Like when's it too far? I suppose we can discuss.
I think I agree with that so far. If we can come back to that later, maybe we can.
It's like I suppose like every country in the world has different looking up like what are North Korea's free speech laws, and pretty much the first thing that came up on Google as a Google suggested answer is just like pretty much every country in the world has decided that it does not have free speech.
Is any other countries like that? I didn't actually.
Is the one to like come into mind, isn't it?
Yeah, it's up there, Liam, or are you?
Yeah, I agree, definitely. No, it's just of agreement, like.
All right.
So well.
Mainly specifically into Ireland's. Other people were focused on America. I think America. The only thing is Publication Acts and the censorship of film, press your convictions and opinions, but that right can be limited in the interest of public order and morality. I think it's quite. You're not interfering with the code.
Looking into that, but I was looking into something like that before about Ireland's free speech laws. And really, what like the main conclusion I got with it is that, like any of these, suppose you could say like hate speech law, crime, you could say, where it's kind of like to prevent them from being harassed. That is really like after like doing some research, that's like the only place where it's enforced in Ireland. Like so far from looking.
It does say specifically, so it's Article 40.6.1 in the Constitution, and it says you cannot use your right to freedom of expression to defame someone else, as this would interfere with their own constitutional right to a good name. So defaming people in Irish law is not allowed either. It is kind of vague, isn't it? I think the public order and morality
interpretation, like I just did a quick simple search there to find out what it says for aggressive pressure or intimidation in any way you want.
I don't know if that can be like, isn't it? Say it again there.
It says aggressive pressure or intimidation.
Well, aggressive pressure is intimidation, isn't it? I think they're just using like synonyms there.
That's what I mean. What classifies as intimidation? What exact kind of act would be
making around you?
Yeah, I agree that that's intimidation, but I'm just saying you can stretch it more broadly. Like, let's say someone speaks over someone else in a conversation, that can be like intimidating sometimes if they continue to do it. Stretch it too far, that doesn't make any sense and it doesn't have any foundation.
I suppose by that it would
I mean, I
probably
would
mean
say,
like a verbal threat.
Aggressive pressure, I think that's just way too broad. You can identify that really easily, but with something like this, it's too broad.
do you think?
It should be written, quite specifically. Like, I kind of get what you mean there. Like, obviously, a law
Hmm.
should be written like to like exactly what it means.
Yeah.
Things that maybe you wanted to be included in your law or whatever. If you get too specific, I think that's the main reasons why these things end up being not so specific.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah, I suppose kind of what it means now is because, like you say, you could probably call it slander. That's kind of what it's trying to stop.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
that goes along with the defaming someone else, doesn't it?
Yeah, I
And,
suppose that's more of a civil kind of lawsuit you would do on someone rather than a criminal one.
yeah.
Yeah, I suppose what about America? Like, what would be the contrast between American and Irish freedom of speech laws? America it being the First Amendment, right?
Yeah. So I kind of prefer America's speech laws, but it's just kind of tricky these days because it almost seems to me like they don't have it anymore. Considering like on the internet there's like censoring, and of course they didn't write down in the Constitution like your freedom of speech included with Wi-Fi or anything. So it's just kind of like that's either left up to interpretation when it shouldn't be. I think freedom of speech just covers all of your speech and your freedom. You have the freedom to say whatever you want, and nobody can take that away from you, even if they disagree with it or find it like even when you say something's hateful, like it's like a slippery slope when it comes to these definitions. Like
You see, in
like
America, the free speech
hmm,
laws aren't designed for like person to person. Let's say they're designed from like person to government. Like, if you go up to your boss, call him a dickhead, he can still fire you. Like, he has that complete right. But it kind of works
yeah,
differently if you like work for like a government agency and you called your boss there a dickhead.
Yeah.
It's like you
hmm,
can fire it is like.
Yeah, it's to do with state actors, isn't it? And so it's kind of fuzzy, but the way that the free speech works in America is technically, I think it only applies to state actors. So if you work for the government, then you have the right to say what you want. So presumably, like, I'm not entirely sure about this. If you're a teacher, you can say what you want in a classroom, but if a student agrees with you, then are they going against free speech laws because they're not allowed to say what they want? That's just something that I thought was quite funny to
I
think
don't
about.
know. It's just all slippery slopes when it comes to this stuff. Like there's no kind of like the problem is it's not specific, and that's why it's so fucking like everyone can look at it from a different angle and still kind of like you can agree with them on it. Like, well, it's just tricky when it comes to things like this in law because you don't want anyone to be. I don't want anyone at least to be like thrown in prison or, as you said, like the right to a good name because of something they said, or like, for example, like, well, I was saying something there about Trump, and before the protest, he said peacefully and patriotically protest. But
Yeah.
then over the media, they cut out him saying peacefully, and I just don't think that's fair. You can like kind of mangle someone else's words too, like with their
Yeah.
intention, like,
You see that
but they're allowed to.
I was looking a lot into trying to figure out like what like this whole thing, Donald Trump's tweets, what was it he actually said, and like actually finding all these tweets was really difficult. Like
Mm,
even like on all websites, they're just so vague about it. Like for example, one that the only one I remember are like the New York Times and the Guardian. Like they never actually said what it was that he said on Twitter. Even like looking at Google
mm.
Images, there were some of his tweets, but none of them really like indicate that he was, I suppose, inciting violence, as you'd say.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think the like after we were talking about this the other night, Giovanni, I was looking at it, and I think the reason that he got removed from Twitter is because of the whole he was going to get impeached thing, and he kept saying things that, you know, they had to keep fact checking. They were like, this isn't this spreads false news about the election or whatever. Do you know how he was saying things like, we won by a lot? I don't think he said anything that was specifically inciting violence on Twitter, but it was like a culmination of all the things that he was saying that got him banned.
Yeah.
And it's really important to notice the fact that, like, this is why you need to take individual cases into account too, because you can't just say, oh, well, you're inciting violence if you say there's voter fraud. Because then any regular old Joe walking in the street, if he says there's voter fraud, he can be thrown in prison. Like, you can't have that. Otherwise, it's basically, you can't really separate it from a fascist state, like really, at that point. But the reason it was so strange, such a grey area, is because the certain situation around the election, the impeachment, and all the people who were there. And it kind of leads to scenario, well, he must have known that that was going to happen. You can't just prosecute someone just because you believe that they must have known, because that's a lot of projecting. You don't actually know anyone else's experience.
Oh, they weren't aware of what they're doing. Is I feel like it doesn't really hold up that well.
But in court, you have to be trialed individually.
Yes. What do you mean? Like,
so when you're going to court, like, you're not going to be tried as a group or anything. You'll be tried as an individual. So you have to look at each case individually.
yeah, but are you talking about Trump still? As in he was, because I think in the impeachment or whatever, it was just focused on him, was it not?
Yeah, but I'm saying about his Twitter being banned. I'm saying, like, they said his Twitter was being banned because he was, like, you could say, like, leading people on.
Yeah.
What he was saying about the election. So I was
See.
pointing out, like, you can't really claim someone's inciting violence for saying that there's election fraud, because any regular Joe can get it then.
I
But you got to look at each
don't
case
think
specifically.
I think he got impeached for what he said on the day, not his tweets about election fraud. And then they kind of they made it into a thing where the narrative that he had built up since he had lost the election was getting his fans to believe this, well, lie, if you
Yeah,
want to think it was a
I don't
lie.
think so. You see, because he posted the videos on his Twitter as well. You see, so that's
See,
why I think,
that's the thing though. Like,
because he posted the videos before.
like, for example, Twitter we're speaking about here, that doesn't fall under free speech. Like, as in the law in America, that does not fall into free speech. Maybe in other countries it does, I don't know. But it's kind of like when you're using like stuff like Twitter, you're really, the laws you're following is their terms and agreement.
Yeah. And if you breach their own code of conduct or whatever, they have every right to remove you from the site.
Yeah.
You do not think it's still such a grey area, though, because
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
kind of like you follow the law of their terms and agreements, but it seems to me like their terms and agreements don't really follow the law.
Well, I mean, if you accept their terms and agreements when you start using their app, though, you're in that agreement with them. Then
Yeah.
It's a two-way thing. They've put forward the terms and you've agreed to them. So anything that's in there, I think is like, you should have read all of the terms and agreements if you wanted to do something that wasn't in there. If you know what I mean.
But I was discussing this with these last day as well, though. But I think it's weird when it's like the slippery slope of them terms and agreements when it comes to, like, when we're talking about like the 18 thing. You had to go to be 18 to sign up to it.
Yeah.
There's no real thing stopping anyone from saying that they're 18. They can just kind of like log onto it. So it's like, it is their responsibility that they logged into it and they lied, and that would be fraud, right?
Yep.
But also, I don't really think it holds up either, because if the person isn't 18 to begin with, how could they actually sign the terms and agreements to use the website when they're not actually old enough to use the website? So it's like,
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's like when
that
you
one's
sign.
a bit of a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's like if you sign up fakely, then that is fraud. At the end of the day, like legally speaking, like.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, it's like, as like I remember going on about earlier, like, if something happened that someone had to be brought to court for or something, like, obviously, that suppose social media platform wouldn't be suppose like a contributor in the factor, you could say.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like even if you did
Well,
sign up as a fake age, because that was your fault. This kind of thing
yeah,
is
but
what.
Kind of you're to blame for that.
as I was saying though, at the same time, like they're both to blame. It's not just for one person who signed the agreements, because what I'm saying is they can't legally sign the agreements to use their website if they weren't actually that age. So legally, they can't actually sign the document. So it's just such a slippery area because it's fraud, but they can't actually sign it in the first place.
Yeah, but they signed it,
I
so
don't know
it
what the
is fraud. That's
specific.
kind of like how it works.
Yeah. I don't
Is
know
there-
what the specific law, the way it works there, though. I'm sure there's something maybe that we're not aware of that comes into play there, because I don't think any of us are experts on the law of signing up to a social media site.
It's a tough topic.
Yeah, I suppose that could kind of tie
Like
into
we're
our
just
social media podcast, which was one of our best ones. If anyone wants to check that out afterwards, I'd recommend that. Like he's gonna
Yeah,
be
that
so
was a good
triggered in
one.
the comments. Putting my plug there.
and use the fucking Penguin link too, boys. Go
Yep.
buy some stuff.
Oh yeah,
the
and
channel, all
I
that.
didn't mention it there, but we're on Spotify now. Only one podcast is up. I'll probably upload the rest in the week. You should check them out. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. We've got a Spotify going on.
And Twitch. Don't forget Twitch.
Yeah, the Twitch views going well. We got 4 on Twitch.
Spotify works.
Oh, and Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, Liam's job.
The
Let's
marketing.
just since we're on a free speech,
Shameless
I think we should just
self-promotion.
censor Mikey in the chat, honestly, because he's talking about wolves again.
There was an interesting dynamic playing out in the chat there. I think someone was infringing upon Mikey's right to freedom of speech, I believe.
I believe it was us.
Just not on.
Because
Mm.
Liliana's
Oh,
not
no.
pleased that Mikey is not in the stream.
Justice for Mikey.
Um,
I like the way he shared the hashtag himself. He was like, "Justice for me."
sure, yeah, we're up at I think 32 subscribers now. Pretty cool. Got a few this video. Well, Liam, what other stuff do you have there? I suppose.
No, I just wanted to like mention I just kind of came here like with a few like interesting scenarios and just kind of like show you the kind of grace you hear like in the law of free speech. Just from like people like I'm sure we've mentioned one or two of them before social media one. Okay, so free speech advocate, and he lives in Scotland, the UK, and he basically made a video that was a pug, very cute dog, seemed like the most uncute thing possible. And at the start of the video, he pointed out that it was a joke. In the very start of the video, which I think really matters because in these, I'm sure we can all agree on like gas the Jews or something. And in the start of the video, he said it was a joke, yet still it was brought before court, and they basically asked him to pay.
I think it did get dropped.
Against them, like they were milking that story in the news. Like I've only like I didn't know Countdown at the time, but I definitely see on the news does like suppose like
Yeah.
to like claim power.
And things like that, which means he can't make any more money off YouTube. He can still get money from all this GI, maybe.
Yeah, it's general like if YouTube.
I'm
Like,
not
it's
sure.
not like your whole channel gets demonetized. It's suppose it's on the
Yeah,
basis of
it's
each individual video.
The video. Yeah.
And can't some videos get taken down too?
Yeah, that.
Like completely
Yeah,
just taken off
it's
YouTube for.
yeah, it's like on Twitter. Like if it breaches the terms and agreements or like copyright laws, that kind of stuff, they'll take them down. Yeah, it's like generally
How
YouTube
do you
is a
mean?
very open thing that you can put up pretty much whatever you want as long as essentially just like it's not nudity or like extreme
Yeah.
violence. Really, you're not going to get monetized. Monetized meaning essentially getting ads to make money.
Me to elaborate a little bit more on that. Well, great
What are
content
they
creators,
called?
but they were making videos, and those which seem much worse in my opinion, but they don't get demonetized. So I just think it's really weird the kind of like how they decide that, because it doesn't really tell the creators sometimes exactly and where the lines are. It was just kind of for YouTube to decide.
Yeah.
Which is really
What
strange.
you can. Yeah.
Yeah, you see, like, the way advertising works on YouTube is much different than other, I suppose, like when you think of general advertising, you think of like the television laws, where it's like the kind of like international set of laws where like you can only have a certain amount of ad time, like per hour, and only a split on YouTube. Like Joel terms and agreements, I have to state clearly at the beginning of the video that this video is sponsored. Do that being like that's why I said like that. I suppose this technically does go under free speech, but it's just like I suppose YouTube takes a much different approach than the general. So it's like even like copyright and stuff. Like I was telling you this like probably half an hour ago before we started the stream. But it's like basically in suppose the 1980s, 1990s in the UK, basically the BBC had a massive monopoly on the radio in the UK, where literally there was no one. Basically they had like these really strict laws on basically on advertising, because sometimes when you watch a film like on films, I know there was some like Hollywood reality show where it's like there would be literally like extreme zoom-ins of like L'Oreal lipstick and stuff like that. Now basically there, like it has to be stated, like a film doesn't have to state that, but in general like they'd put it in the credits that like they have had an association with this company to do that.
A trailer of Bud Light like explodes, and then Mark Wahlberg is drinking Bud Light in the middle of a Transformers film.
Yeah, like that's a perfect example.
Of Bud Light.
Even if it's not generally the international law, you could say. Which, as Frank was saying earlier, the international law doesn't really exist.
Yeah, it's like international law is like we all like you can't force any other country to be answered, and one that Matthew McFadden has kind of offered up in the comments, freedom of speech, and I just
that's disinformation. Absolutely, do. He is spreading disinformation.
Well, guys, do you want me to bring up an extremely controversial topic?
Yeah, might as well.
So right. So basically, I was kind of like looking at some stuff into this. I watched a few videos, read a few articles. Was like, in general, my question for yous is going to be, like, should like I suppose like, not like like people like who are like Nazi organizations, like should they be censored, or should they have the?
It's the hate speech, specific types, and you can be an asshole if you want to be, but you can't spread hate against a group of people with baseless accusations.
I see. There's this funny thing I was looking at. Carry on now.
Frank, because although I would absolutely disagree with them as well, I feel they have the right
to speak about why a certain group of people hate Jews. You think that they should have that right, and they're trying to convince people to hate Jews.
You see, that's what freedom of speech is.
Only for the reason that they hate them.
Well, that's what freedom of speech is. You see, it's the law that you're allowed to let anyone say whatever they want, even if they're distasteful or ugly views. And I consider them distasteful, ugly, so many other things, but that's where I put them. It says, feel intense dislike for.
Yeah.
So that's hate. So if you the hate speech, it's just feel intense dislike for.
That it's a slippery slope, and it gets dangerous when you start censoring people. I think that is fair enough, and people shouldn't be censored for saying things that just show a different political point of view. But I think there's some things that should you really be giving these people credibility in any way?
Well, that's what I mean. I believe they have the right to do it.
No, you see,
but I disagree with them, and obviously if there was a channel there, I would hope they do the worst. But I'm pretty sure as well today in today's society that most people would look at that shit and just be disgusted about it anyway.
You see,
and not give them the attention.
It seems to be going more and more in the way that people are starting to get, and because people are,
even though you disagree with them, and they probably are all horrible people, but just the fact you disagree with them, you can't really discriminate against them otherwise, because that could lead to a society that's terrible. This even though you disagree with their beliefs, you cannot discriminate to someone for their beliefs. You know what I mean?
I have an example for this of like when like these kind of groups are like censored, you could say. These like Nazi beliefs, like it was a finable offense. Like you just go like make these Nazi groups hating on, for example, like Jews, like white supremacy, and basically what happened is they based port and like basically having them censored gave them the support to what essentially became Nazi Germany.
Yeah. I say there's real dangers with censorship. Is definitely true. I just think it is it. Where do you draw the?
If they're not hurting anyone, if they're not threatening anyone, I think they're allowed to spread what you consider hateful. Like I definitely consider it hateful, but I don't think they can be still prosecuted or be treated any differently for their speech.
And do you think someone who, say, you have a group like this, like a neo-Nazi group, and someone listens to them a lot and really gets behind their ideas, and then they grow such a hatred for whichever race this group is saying is the devil and things like this, and they go and murder someone of that group, of whichever race or whatever, do you think then that person did everything on their own, or do you think the group has to take responsibility as well for inciting that?
Someone that's their own thing.
Yeah, that's
even though they may have been inspired by like their beliefs.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. And then it's the thing is, but do you not think they should review the things that they say after something like that happens and go, okay,
well,
this is
what do you mean by review?
We're spread. Review what they're saying, as in like go right. We're not being censored here. We're allowed to say what we want. But the rhetoric that we are putting forward is causing people to go and commit violent crimes.
But that's
the way that we speak, because we don't want violent crimes to happen.
Well, that would be the best case scenario, but I'm just thinking personally, when I'm thinking of neo-Nazis, I don't think it could be like that flowery.
No,
but the thing I'm interested.
But here's
the
thing, and then you think that the neo-Nazis should still have a voice and be allowed to radicalize more and more people.
But like, I don't know how you determine how a group's beliefs onto this person cause them to do a certain thing. Like, even if they went and said something like, let's say it's a satanic group, right? And they
should be censored in the way that they're not allowed to put anything out anymore, because that's dangerous, because as Giovanni put forward, when you censor them, they sometimes gain more credibility. But what I mean is put something in...
Determine when they cause violence or not.
Well, it's things like that, isn't it? Like an example is there was a man who shot up a mosque in America, wasn't there? And then there was all of the people that he watched the most on YouTube. Liberals were all like, oh, Ben Shapiro, look what he's doing. He's causing people to shoot up mosques. And then Ben Shapiro said, oh, I've got 1.4 million Twitter followers or whatever. I can't be responsible for every single thing that they do, which is fair enough. But also, presumably Ben Shapiro had an effect on this person who made him want to go up and shoot that mosque, right? This is the presumption. And that all happened, devastating. And Ben Shapiro was like, yes, it's atrocious, but it had nothing to do with me. So I'm going to keep saying the things, spreading these messages that I spread, even though it can sometimes be in line with things he has said. Like, he does come across as very, very racist and things like that.
I don't think so. I don't think he does.
Well,
that everyone can agree with.
Yeah.
And some things that everyone can disagree with. Like, I know he did a wee list of like things he regrets saying or things he shouldn't have said.
See, I feel like with Ben Shapiro is like,
I think it's just
he's just like,
go on, Giovanni.
He's just like, he kind of looks at the facts, and that kind of to people seems like, to say, to be racist, like, or offensive. Know much about him, but from what I've seen, like, obviously not everything I agree with.
I mean,
but
he
kind of like
the thing, hasn't he? Facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah, actually, I've never heard of that, but yeah, that's perfect way of putting it. What I mean.
Yeah, so he has that, but then there are many cases where Ben Shapiro says things that aren't based on fact. They're based on his own emotions, which
Yeah.
are his own feelings.
Of course, but we
I
can't
mean-
say everything that's in line with everyone all the time, because
No,
throughout your whole life, someone could take something you say very seriously, and if they do something, no matter what it is, like, are you responsible for that because of your
yeah,
words?
but this is the thing. That all happened with Ben Shapiro, yeah?
Hmm.
And this man presumably carried out this awful crime because he had taken things from what Ben Shapiro had said and then gone and committed this. Now, Ben Shapiro, I'm sure he didn't intend for that to happen. But then instead of saying, right, some of the things I say are being interpreted in this way, I should probably review what I'm saying and the way I'm saying it to make it very clear that this is not what I want people to do. But he doesn't do that. He says, I can't be responsible, and then continues to say the same things. So that's his
But I
freedom
don't
of
think
speech.
he's responsible. I don't think he's responsible though, because there's a very crucial point here.
I'm not saying he's solely responsible. I'm saying things that he has said, sorry, can radicalize people into hating groups and things. And you should.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not think it would be right
I
for
believe so.
him to review? You don't believe that?
No, well, I don't think he's like responsible in any like way at all. But yeah, I could definitely say he has an effect on people. But look,
Yeah,
there's a
because
really crucial.
he has a wide base of people who listen to him, so he should be aware of that. He has responsibility in the I can't think of the right word. He is influencing all of these millions of people. You don't think he has to be more careful of what he says than say we do on here?
Well, absolutely. Like he has to be careful. Like I know he has a big influence, and I hope he treats it like the people he's talking to like how will I say, like carefully. Like I don't know how to phrase it, but like there's something that I think I need to point out here, and that's the fact that like 2 minutes ago you kind of said that like he said some racist things, right? Which is like a really serious accusation, right? If you call someone a racist, like some people would like to punch a racist in the face, absolutely, myself included, maybe. But like when you say that, if someone went out and attacked Ben Shapiro now, and their most recent video was ours, I don't think that's fair. That against you. If someone did go out and attack Ben Shapiro, and we were the most listened to thing on their thing,
But I don't.
would
I'm
you be
not
held
saying.
responsible for saying he was racist?
I'm not saying that Ben Shapiro should be censored. The point I'm putting carelessly because it seriously affects millions of people.
It's like
Well,
I don't think someone else do an action with their words. I think you can influence
that
people
isn't true. That isn't
with
true.
your words.
That isn't. You can make people influence. You can incite violence with your words.
No, I believe you can move your hand through any amount of huffing and puffing I do with my words. I cannot
can't,
make
but
you act.
I can lie to you. I can lie to you and make you go and commit serious crimes and things. I can be true, and then you go kill that person because you're so angry about this, and then it turns out that. Now, I'm not saying that would ever happen in reality, but what I'm saying is I have the power to do that with my words. I can affect your own. You can.
I think it's interesting. I still disagree with you, but I think it's interesting. I think it is a grey area because, like, if someone was to go attack Ben Shapiro now after listening to our podcast, be held responsible.
Well, no, because I haven't said like. I'm not. I use Ben Shapiro as an example because it's someone who came to my head. I'm not advocating, but that's the thing. I don't have an influence on many people. I mean, how many people are watching the stream now? 7 or 8.
But Frank, it's all in perspective, is what I'm trying to tell you. It doesn't matter if it's 100 people or 100 people. You still have more influence than someone
people. Then your words have more weight. So you need to be more careful with what you say
in a conversation. Then your words would only have influence on me, than they would on just me and you. So it's all in perspective. But then the upside to that would be Ben Shapiro, because he always has a lot of views.
See, it's not that his words are more powerful.
What I think matters. Yeah, but you gotta also understand the wider demographic. It's also our other argument side of it as well.
So, alright guys, just a small break there, just to let everyone know. If our sponsor, Kingwin.net, oh my god, Kingwin.net. Link is in the description. You'll have to check them out. They sell cheap games, cheap software, all at great discounts. If you do so, you'll be supporting the channel. And also, if you want to check out our Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and YouTube, they're all links in the description as well. And also, again, we have a Spotify. If you want to check that out too, it'd be much appreciated. And we'll let you back in to hear the guys there.
Go buy shit and then go back. This is a podcast.
No, do it after. Do it after.
Yeah, Frank. Just buy everything. Just buy it all the merch. Buy it. Well, Frank, it is interesting to hear that perspective. Like, you have really made me think there. Like, honestly, though.
Yeah, do people like? Is Liam gone?
Yeah, he's back.
He's
He's back.
There. Sorry about that.
Just
What were you saying?
Connection. Lost my train of thought there. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, you would want everybody to have the same freedom of speech and be able to say what they want to say. But at what point, with a certain following of people, do you have to take responsibility and think, okay, broadcast? I think it's just an interesting thing to think about.
I think it is.
I'm not saying that Ben Shapiro should stop doing what he does or whatever. But it's just an interesting thing to.
I do think away some people though, Frank, I honestly do. Like, I think there are certain people who do take it seriously. Like, I know here we try to bring these interesting conversations, but you get them people who you can tell like it kind of like alters on Ben Shapiro. He's a good example. Like, well, like out of all those people, since there's so many watching him, wouldn't you say that they're watching him for a reason too? And you see,
What do you mean?
well,
They're looking for a
personally,
certain
see,
point of view.
well, of course, like well, as I was saying earlier, like if there was a Nazi group, I would wish them the worst on YouTube or whatever. But I wouldn't like be against them getting, or sorry, I would be against them getting censored or cut off just for their beliefs, even if I disagree with their beliefs. I think they're awful. I don't think they should be cut off for that.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's a
Yeah,
fine line, really. Like.
Yeah, I think it's just the thing that I wanted to put forward is where do you draw the line? I feel like in 99.9% of cases, censorship isn't a good thing, and that's in America. The law in that case is a bit better than Ireland, you could say, because it's clear in our own constitution that censorship is allowed under the constitution. So
I think exposing Ireland,
is
a great example of censorship is like in the 1960s, the power the Catholic Church had in Ireland. Like, obviously, like you could think of that film, The Life of Brian, that wasn't allowed to be shown in Ireland till recently, which is pretty insane to think about. And I suppose another thing,
wasn't it?
Was it really that far?
I think blasphemy was illegal until 2018, which is pretty insane.
Yeah. And like I suppose you could think of like the Catholic Church did have massive censorship in Ireland. I suppose they still do all over the world. That I suppose I don't really know much about, but I'm sure it still exists. But I suppose a really dark example you can think of is like those mother-baby homes, like that were like completely hidden from the public. It's where basically anyone not in Ireland is basically where unwedded mothers would go and they'd basically work there, have their baby, but they were subjugated to like horrible conditions, and basically they were forced to put their kid up to adoption. But in the recent years there's been lots of cases where they're finding these like mass graves of dead babies, like where these mother-baby homes
like
were.
Out of a fucking horror TV show.
Yeah, like...
And what the most mental thing is recently the government decided to close down the files so that no one could like learn about who was involved for another 30 years or something insane like that. So presumably there's still people alive who had a big say in what happened there, and they don't want that to get out.
I don't remember the name of the place, but one of these mass graves they found, what the government done is they literally just built a park over it, like a play park for children, like just to completely hide it from the public. Like, so it's even in Ireland, like
they found the the bodies or the bones or the decayed remains or whatever in sewage, didn't they? In the septic tanks.
Yeah, we found them like loads of places, just like even just like on manholes and everything. Like it's so hard to believe that.
And
Like I suppose like we think of like Ireland now, like but Ireland back then was a really dark place.
yeah, very censored.
Yeah,
That we only getting this information now, and
yeah.
it was happening for so long ago, and that they've decided that it's okay to keep that under wraps and that no one's allowed to hear about it. Or,
That's the thing. That's like
I mean,
stuff
there's a lot
that's.
of talk about it, but
I mean, that's like stuff that we think now was only going on back then, but like stuff could still be happening too that we won't know for another 30 years when people start to discover that. That's the thing.
yeah,
It's like you don't
makes
know
you
if you're
think.
being censored or not.
And that's the thing with the censorship being part of the constitution,
yeah.
that they have the right to limit your freedom of expression in the interest of public order and morality. So presumably morality is in line with what the church wanted as well at the time.
Mhm.
Because what makes you moral? I think it's a very subjective
Yeah, like literally, that's
term,
probably the
isn't it?
most subjective and personal thing ever. What is
Yeah,
morality? It's almost like asking someone what is God to them. Like maybe if
yeah,
you're in
yeah.
Ireland
It's
and
exactly
people, it
like
might
that.
be
Actually, isn't it?
it may be simple in Ireland if you're asking people what religion you, most of it's going to just be like Catholic, or whatever. But like there is a lot of religions out there, and when you look at them, like they're very alien to each other. Like they all have like a kind of similarity somewhere, but they are also alien to each other. Like I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, like I suppose then we got like the home country of censorship being North Korea. Like I don't think like anyone in the world knows really what's going on there. Like,
Mm.
You see, Frank. Also, let me go back to this a second as well. When you were saying like if there was a Nazi group or whatever, like should you not think they should be like censored? Maybe, possibly, maybe.
Possibly, maybe, possibly,
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly.
That's the trademark.
Yeah,
shame.
What were you saying, Liam? You were continuing there, were you?
yeah. Just a bit of shameless promotion, like of the intro, like.
Yeah.
But what really scares me is if you gave that power to the government, right? If you give the government power to control hate speech, like that to me sounds like one of the scariest things that could be coming up almost, because like hate, as I said, is like or like maybe someone's opinion that you disagree with strongly. Like that's so like you can't really put someone down for that, because let's say your group, right? A good group, let's say, uh, goes up there, like who's to stop them? If like a dictator got in power, who's to stop them from interpreting maybe someone's good intentions and things like that, interpreting that as strongly disagreeable or disgusting and call it hate speech, like, because
Yeah.
then both sides can just show hate speech to each other and it gets nothing solved.
Yeah, I
My
think
opinion.
you're always walking like on very thin ice whenever you give the government extra powers like that, because then it leaves the door open to censorship on a bigger scale.
Yeah. Like in
Yeah.
America, they were able to censor the US president. Like that is crazy. Like that is probably just as crazy as an event as January 6th. Like very crazy
Yeah.
things happen here. I think it's like moving so fast already. Like we're in February and it seems like holy shit.
Yeah, still like stuff going on about it.
Yeah.
And even in China, there was the whole fucking genocide thing, and Joe Biden's just kind of bending over to that.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Like
But I mean,
people
on the
people
other
probably
side,
won't know
that
about
has been
this.
going on. On the other side, that has been going on for a while. I mean, yeah, shame on Joe Biden for acting the way that he did. But also, like, Trump wasn't doing anything about it either.
Hmm.
There's that side of it. Like, I know, like, Liam, you'd be a bit of a fan of Trump or whatever. But to say Joe Biden's not doing anything about it, that's terrible, is to acknowledge that Trump wasn't doing anything
Mm.
about it either.
Yeah, but I still think people won't know about these till like maybe the end of next year. Like even Joe Biden was saying the quarantine will be ending next year. Like after he said it would be ending this year, like it's all over the place. Like
Yeah, I think
any
it's
man's
all a bit
guess
up in
of,
the air.
yeah,
Something that I saw recently, it's only the last couple of weeks, isn't it? It's quite an interesting case, is Gina Carano. It's
exactly.
topical, isn't it? And she was if anyone doesn't know, she played a character in The Mandalorian, Cara Dune or
Deadpool,
whatever, the Star
Deadpool.
Wars show. Yeah, and well, she didn't get cancelled for Deadpool though, did she?
No,
She
no,
got cancelled or
just
whatever. She got
Mandalorian.
fired. She got fired from Disney or whatever for whatever tweets she made that were, they weren't even particularly bad or edgy tweets. They were just showing a kind of Republican view of things, and anyway, she was fired for what she said. Liam, do you know exactly what it was? It was some Holocaust comparison, wasn't it? It was like
If you give me a second, I'll pull it up.
I
But
think it was to do with saying like look at this footage of or this picture of Germany during World War II, and the neighbors of the Jews were beating them in the streets even before the Nazi troops landed. Like even before the SS and that came, the Jews were being thrown out of their homes and stuff by their neighbors because there was such hate there. And she said, we can't let this happen again. We have to tolerate all types of people or something along those lines. So it's not even a particularly like.
Yeah.
I mean, she used a Holocaust
Well,
comparison, which isn't great.
was that
like,
true though? Like, was that being done?
yeah, that was true.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
it
even
was.
mentioned in the tweets that the children would like join along. But I couldn't get that
did you
tweet.
get the tweet there?
No,
Did you
I
get it?
didn't
No?
get that tweet. I'll keep searching for it, but I found another one here, and it's just another kind of like she doesn't even say anything that, unless you're a very, very extremely sensitive person, which I'd honestly recommend not going on the internet if you're one of those kind of people.
Yeah.
But she says here, we need to clean up the election process so that we are not left feeling the way we do today. Put laws in place that protect us against voter fraud. Investigate every state. Film the counting. Flush out fake votes. Require ID. Make voter fraud end in 2020. Fix the system. And an American flag emoji.
Wait, do
Now,
you
Yeah,
not
and-
need to take your ID with you to vote in America?
in certain states, no, you don't.
certain
That's
states,
unreal.
Yeah, it's different in every state. Yeah.
That's
And that's what they
unreal.
were saying. Like, there is like definitely some, like, the problem is nobody can actually say how much there is, but there is evidence of, yes, there was some voter fraud. Like, for example, like mail-in ballots that only required signatures, and nursing homes be able to do things like old patients with maybe like dementia or something. Like, they would sign the ballot not really knowing what it is, and if they sign the wrong person, well, it can just go in the bin anyways. So it's all just crazy right now, especially with the COVID as well. There's so much information in COVID. I would say, no, I don't know, but it almost seems to me like there's so much information just from this COVID year, probably comparable to like all information on the internet previous. It just seems like there's that much to me right now. Like, it's just in everyone's face. You can't keep track of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Nobody
Um,
can. We're all a representation of that too, because like we're all seeing it from different perspectives. We're all seeing the same thing going on, but it like we're all reading different things about it. Like, so the three of us don't understand everything that's going on, but when we combine together, we can know a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah, like all our like
yeah.
information's there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy to-
And I think it's shocking with what happened with Gina Carano because she didn't say anything. Like saying that we need a safe and secure election, even if you thought the election was secure or whatever. I mean, why is that something that needs to be taken down for? Like, I mean, everyone agrees that all elections should be safe and secure. I don't understand why it came to the point that they would fire her for comments like that. And even if you don't agree with her, I mean, look at the massive uprising now of people supporting her and people who maybe are more extreme than she is, who are standing with what she said and that, who are emboldened now because she was censored. I think censorship is such a dangerous route to take always.
Oh yeah, Frank. I would like to mention as well, like it was such a perfect hello over to Ben Shapiro because Gina Carano just came on his show today.
Yeah, I
Earlier.
saw that actually earlier. I didn't watch the show, but I saw that she had been on his show. Yeah.
So anyone who's really not
But
familiar with
that's
her, you go check it out there. I'd recommend it. For anyone who doesn't know anything about
yeah.
it, they cover it all there. It's really good.
But I think that kind of shows like what I'm saying is Ben Shapiro would be seen as somebody who is probably a bit more right wing than she came across in her tweets and that, and because of what happened to her, because she had similar ideas to him, he took her on the show to explain that their views are being censored, which unfortunately is what is happening in a lot of cases.
Mm.
But all it does, if you disagree with them people, and I can't stress this enough, all you do by censoring them is make them have more of a following because people hate that. So you're not solving any problems for yourself. You're actually making more people tend that way by censoring the people who spread those messages.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Even the fact let's just get some John Lennon, right? Now, let's say one of his songs just all about love, right? Well, if someone was in office, technically with hate speech laws, if they just found that offensive, if they found someone saying love is offensive, what's to stop them from fucking attacking another person for hate speech, even though he's saying things about love, because it's all up to interpretation and it just falls apart,
Yeah.
Hmm.
because what you
Um,
might consider hate, I might consider love, and what you might consider love, I might consider hate.
well, I mean, I see what you're
Well,
trying to say, but
not
I
to
think
the extreme so much, but even Ben Shapiro,
yeah,
I might love watching his shows. You might really just despise, or I don't know, maybe despise his voice or something. You just can't stand the guy.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah, um,
Hmm. Yeah, I personally don't know
yeah,
much about him, but this interesting to listen to, like.
I hope so.
yeah. I just turned into a bit of a Ben Shapiro power hour, didn't it? But
Mm.
uh, he is an interesting public figure, I suppose. Even if you don't agree with a lot of the things that he says, he has a credible following, so you need to be. I think he's an important person to listen to, especially with things to do with freedom of speech, because he's a big advocate of it.
Hmm. There's someone else I wanted to mention as well. Do you by any chance know Daryl Davis? He did a TED talk
I
3 years ago.
I
Oh,
I
is that
actually
the
watched Joe Rogan's podcast with him yesterday.
the
Yeah.
guy who befriended the KKK member? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was a
That's
black
He's
really
musician.
interesting.
he's a
Yeah. And that's what I mean. There were certain people who were calling Daryl Davis a Nazi and all this after this because
I know it's insane.
yeah, so that's what I mean. It's I don't know anything else to say. It's just ridiculous to me. Freedom of speech all day. Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's his
I think
story
the
is so
Daryl Davis thing.
It's kind of like
I
the
mean, there's
way.
nothing that. Yeah,
Carry
go
on,
on,
Frank. Oh my God, Frank.
I sorry. I was
It's
just
alright.
on the topic of Daryl Davis. Like, if you actually listen to anything that he says, there is no way you could possibly call him a Nazi. So that's just showing complete uh,
Ignorance.
these people complete ignorance. They have no idea, and they're talking about something that they don't have any real authority to have an opinion on. Like,
It's
yeah,
the
it's
people who
just
wouldn't even listen to this video either. They just read an article being like, "Oh, he's a Nazi. Look, there he is. There's a photo of him with the KKK. He must be a Nazi." Look at him.
I know it's
Of course,
What
that's
were you saying, Giovanni, before I rudely
yeah. I was just gonna
interrupted?
say, like, it's interesting a story how, like, he basically, you could say, like, he took an open opinion on it, kind of the ability to listen to both sides from like his own experience of being a black person in America. I don't know what year it was, but like when I suppose like racism was really prominent, and then to like be talking to this guy in the KKK who is literally, you could say, the opposite of what his beliefs are, and he kind of like looked at both sides, and they
Yeah.
had a really good friendship out of it. I think like a lot of people could like learn from that. Like being open to both opinions is something really important.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's the thing. It's communication between both sides is what is so important. But something that I would say is, like, if you listen to Daryl Davis, he didn't start speaking to the KKK to like get their opinions on things. It was kind of just to show them that their opinions were like that these people only reach these conclusions because, as he says in his first encounter with a Klansman, they like he had never sat down with a black person. Like these people form their opinions from nothing because they have no experience with these people. And as soon as he gave them the experience, I think he converted 200 people to not that they left the clan directly because of him, but he definitely caused their leaving of the KKK.
Yeah, like
Right,
he
you
had
could say he had an
influence.
influence on them.
Yeah.
He did.
Mm, absolutely.
Definitely.
But that's what I mean. Like, even just look at that. He definitely had an influence. Nobody can deny that. But it's still like there's a kind of significance, I'd imagine, in someone like leaving the clan. Like that's very interesting. Like a KKK member who's probably been raised that their whole life, and then just being like, you know what, I was wrong. I was wrong in my beliefs, and they changed them. There's
Yeah,
something like really nice
and
about that.
he did say I was just watching the podcast he did with Joe Rogan yesterday. He does say the people who have the KKK kind of ingrained into them, like their father was in the KKK, their grandparents or whatever, or their grandfather, um, was in the KKK. Then it's harder. Like they generally aren't the kind of people that you will get to leave.
Mhm.
Just by the way beliefs are ingrained. Now, not to say that they would never leave, but generally they wouldn't. Um, and then people who join out of frustration with things like, people, lots of people were laid off from working in like the coal industry in America because it was cheaper to get immigrant workers because they would
Mm-hmm.
work for less money. So these people get laid off, and they blame the people who came and took the jobs, even though it was the corporations looking for the cheap way out or whatever. The people who owned they
Exactly.
were like, oh, it's cheaper for us to do this. And then the KKK would come to town and be like, these people came and stole your jobs. The jobs are still there. If you join us, we can get them back. So out of frustration, they joined, thinking that this can be changed because these people are evil who came and took your jobs. Those people generally are easier to change their mind back again. It's just they were in a place of frustration when it happened, kind of thing. So interesting again.
Absolutely. And one of these people, like the person he reached out to first, happened to be like Clan Dragon or something as well. So he was like one of the heads of the heads. Like,
Yeah, he was that head in the state, wasn't he? Was it Maryland? Maryland? I'm not entirely sure now. And then he became like the national leader as well. He became
yeah,
like the grand. They've got the Grand Wizard or something, isn't it? They've got some very funny names.
yeah.
It's like making the chats like I feel like now he's complaining that he's not in it because literally the entire chat has said
I
like
mean,
we want
he's the
Mikey.
only one. He's the only one saying that he wants Mikey as well.
Yeah, I know. And like before the like or like literally like 10 minutes before starting, he's like, oh no, I don't want to be in this one anyway. It's like hypocritical
Poor
level is
Mikey.
100. But I suppose he has the free speech to say that.
Oh. Matthew compared wolf packs to private companies. We really must have this intellectual on the podcast at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, guys, it's gonna be so much fun to talk about whatchamacallit, GameStop. We should get Matthew. Yeah, Matthew, you're gonna be in on the next episode. Shout out, like,
Well, we'll
think
see.
that's,
We'll see. We still got to plan everything to come.
yeah,
I suppose we can
that's a
kind of
bit of
combine
a-
this, like for free speech. You could say, or maybe not free speech, but I suppose like freedom of information. Maybe is kind of in line with game. There is Joe that game. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Bully, or it's now called Billsworth Academy. It was a Rockstar made PS2 game where you
Oh,
played
yeah,
as a
yeah.
guy called Jimmy Hopkins and basically in a school. And basically that
And
game
you're
was
an asshole.
pretty much,
And
even
like,
though like
yeah,
I mean like generally the media make think that, but like in reality you're kind of the guy stopping the bullying. But yeah, but that game
yeah, it's
got a lot of like so many people and companies try to stop this game from being released, essentially trying to censor it. And like
yeah.
yeah, it's just like obviously you can add the age rating, Peggy age rating, whatever. But I suppose in reality, like I don't think stuff like that should be censored. Like no matter how horrible or how much you disagree with it, just like it should be available there for the people who want it.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely lines there as well, though, on like kinds of things that should never be published.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Good fact,
I don't really want to
Frank.
go there. I don't really want to go there. Like, it's kind of there are some things that should never be published. There's no reason for them to be in any things like I don't even want to say it. I think you know where I'm getting at.
Yeah, but essentially it does fall under the free speech thing. Like personally for free speech, I don't have like a definite yes or no answer. Like obviously, I'd love for everyone to have the ability to say what they want when they want, but
Yeah.
then you
But
got to think of it
you'd
from the
also want
side.
people to not be
Yeah, people are
assholes.
assholes.
Like, it'd be so much handier if people weren't assholes.
Yeah,
That would solve so many problems.
yeah. That's pretty much what free speech boils to. Like, is people being
And it's
assholes.
kind of like everyone wants free speech, and like we're saying, like you just wish people weren't assholes, and it's kind of like a shame when you defend free speech, and you, and I think we should always defend free speech, but you are defending these people with abhorrent views or whatever, and you're like,
yeah, you have to end up
I
defending
wish,
assholes.
yeah,
So
and you're
make
like,
people
I wish
honest
these
with that
people
sometimes.
didn't have these views, like.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, if you want to have access to your own views and be able to express your own views, then you need to be ready to listen to shit that you don't want to listen to.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's quite a tricky one. Yeah,
There's something else I wanted to mention, but
Yeah,
I
go
don't
on.
know like exactly how this ties in. But over the past 2 days, I learned two interesting things, and it's that Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, I believe, and Bill Gates owns the Guardian, which is kind of interesting, I think, because when we go back to our freedom of speech episode,
I don't think that's true, Liam, about The Guardian. I'm fairly certain that The Guardian is
it's a British
um,
newspaper, isn't it?
way, but the way that The Guardian works is it's run by money that people who use the paper like pay towards it. I'm just like, because you get that, I have the app and it's like, oh, can you donate £6 because we try to be like neutral journalism or whatever, and we don't want to be to have to rely on money from big big people like Jeff Bezos and things like that.
Oh, wait, sorry. It's not that he owns them, actually. It's that he is their, what would you say? Like, he's their number one,
Funder.
funder. He gives them the most funds. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the main, like, subscriber to The Guardian, you might say. He gives The Guardian more money than anyone else, which I just find interesting. But I think it's
Yeah,
actually Jeff
so
Bezos does own the Washington Post, maybe through a grandparent company. Not exactly sure, but
yeah. So The
I've seen
Guardian
something
is
about that.
funded in part by the Gates Foundation, but allegedly this has no bearing on the content that they create. The content is meant to remain independent. as opposed to just doing what Bill Gates says, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think it's like Fox News and what's his name, Richard Branson, is it? That owns Fox News.
I'm not sure.
I might have
I'm
the
not
name.
sure. I don't want to say
No,
like
no, he's
occasional
Virgin.
one.
Sorry, it's the other guy. What's his name? Anyway, I can't think of it now.
I was just censoring Mikey in the chat there, sorry.
Hmm.
Sorry, you know, it's free speech. Like, we can't have none of that around here.
Rupert Murdoch, I think. Yeah, that's who I meant to say.
So I have the definition of a censor, by the way. If you want me to read it out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go on.
It says here, censorship is the suppression of speech, public communication, or other information on the basis that such material is considered objectionable, harmful, sensitive, or inconvenient. Censorship can be conducted by government, private institutions, and other controlling bodies. Sorry,
All right.
I just find it interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you think that
think-
applies to social media?
I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
stuff is
Trump, like, for example, like his tweets were, well, his Twitter's gone now, right? His whole Twitter is gone. It's not just his
Yeah.
tweets; they're deleted. Like his whole Twitter account is gone, right?
I think the reason for that is, well, that he was in breach of their terms or whatever. You know, like
Mm.
he did so many tweets that they thought should be censored, so then he was removed from the platform.
I don't know. I don't know for sure if
What
it's
do you
a
think?
permanent removal, because like what it says is suspended, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's something like that, isn't it?
See, I don't understand like why they allowed to do that in the first place. Like, I don't understand how they can have terms and agreements that powerful in the first place.
Well, I mean,
How is that?
it's their company. I could make a company and be like, my terms and agreements are that if anyone says anything nice to Liam, then you get fired. And like, it's an asshole thing to do, but I can do that if I want.
Yeah, definitely. It's like
I don't think
terms
you
and
can
agreements.
though, because that would be like,
You
Well,
can pretty
maybe you
much.
can't do that
Your-
specifically, but
Your terms and agreements can be pretty much anything as long as it isn't like something illegal.
yeah.
Like if like
that's
say
what I mean.
my terms
How
and
is
agreements
it
were
not
like you had to
illegal?
murder someone.
That exact example is probably defamation of your character or whatever, so it's probably not allowed, but you get my point. I can make up my own terms and agreements, and as long as they're within the law, then they can be anything that I want them to be. So if you say something
It's-
that I think violates my hate speech terms and agreements, then you can be removed from the site.
Sure, and
I
remember
just
an
don't understand
interesting
how they
thing
can have that.
about talk about terms and agreements is it was a few years ago. Basically, GameStop done this thing where it's like, and they wanted to find out how many people actually read terms and agreements. So what they did at the bottom of the terms and agreements is like, by accepting this, you are like, sorry, by accepting these terms and agreements, you're willing to sell your soul to the devil or whatever. But then under that was like, and you can redeem €100 at the shop that you bought this from within 24 hours or something. And it was just kind of interesting that, like, I don't know, like, not many people, like, obviously claimed it because, like, you know, not many people actually read terms and agreements, but they kind of done that survey to find out how many people actually do.
Yeah,
That was just kind of
barely
funny.
anyone.
Yeah, it's probably like maybe like 3 people.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, like the term and
Interesting.
agreement to sell your soul to the devil.
We've all been there though.
Jeez, but there's been some wild nights out. The post-quarantine.
There's been some hate speech pinned in the WhatCast chat. Live
Oh
chat.
no, it's not hate speech, it's fact. You see, there's a difference between hate and
Oh.
fact.
Mikey lovers do in fact disgust her, so it's a fact. Uh,
Well, do you know what? I think that's. Is this all we have today? Or like, does anyone have anything else they want to say? Bring up?
I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, I think
that
it's been a pretty good
we
podcast.
planned to
It's
cover
not
anyway.
drag it on.
Yeah.
You happy out, Liam?
Sure, let's get out of here.
All
Get
right,
some
guys.
beers or whatever.
Say your goodbyes then.
Right. Farewell.
Go buy stuff. Like, what are you doing on this video? Like, go buy stuff.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for hopping on today. Much appreciated. I'll be ending the stream now within a minute. Just saying, once again, links in the description to our Twitch. The Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. For those of you watching on Twitch, it's very fun being here today. Music was played by Darach Sharkey. Shout out to him, and obviously our sponsor. And anyway, guys, we'll see you all next time. Good luck and goodbye.